The next topic is food preparation, and you need to know about lots of different commodities and food products to do with this topic. I will go through 10 of the main things I think you need to know, but there are many more things that we've learnt about in lesson that you need to be revising as well. Don't take this as a definitive list. These are just the key points I want you to remember. The first one is to do with meat preparation. There are 3 main types of animals that we eat meat from: pigs, sheep and cows. You need to be aware that the internal edible organs are known as offal. So if you get a question that mentions offal, they're the internal organs that we eat, such as the liver. You need to be aware of the muscle fibres. So all meat's made up of muscle fibres and connective tissues. Now the longer the muscle fibre is, the more work that part of the animal has done, such as the leg, which means it takes a longer time to cook. So methods such as slow cooking and roasting would suit that cut of meat. Then you've got the shorter fibres, things like a rump. They have short fibres, they've not done a lot of work and they don't take a lot of cooking. So shorter cooking methods such as frying and grilling would suit those cuts of meat. So remember the difference in the length of the muscle fibres. Long muscle fibres for long cooking times, short muscle fibres for short cooking times. Fish. 3 types of fish. If you get this question in your exam, please don't say salmon, cod and haddock. The 3 types of fish are oily, white and shellfish. Again, the flesh is made up of muscle and connective tissue, but in fish it's very short muscle fibres, which means that it's a very quick cooking time, which is why in any recipe and method it doesn't take very long to cook fish. You need to make sure that it's fresh. So when accepting deliveries of fish, your checks that you need to do are to make sure it smells fresh, slightly salty like the sea, it shouldn't smell at all fishy, bright red gills, clear eyes and lots of scales. If you notice lots of scales missing, it's probably not so fresh. If you're accepting delivery of shellfish, you need to make sure that the shells are tightly closed and not at all open. Next is pasta, rice and cereals. The main cereals you need to know about are wheat, rice, corn, barley, rye and oats. You need to know that flour is made from wheat, and you have strong wheat and you have weak wheat. Now strong flours, strong white flours are made from the strong wheat, so this is what you need to make bread and pasta. And your standard wheat flour is made from weak wheat and they are used for cakes, basic baked goods. Now the difference is the protein content, so the stronger flours, the strong wheats contain a high protein content, which is a high gluten content, and the weaker wheats have a low gluten content. You need to know that rice and pasta are good alternatives to potatoes. They're still high in carbohydrates, but they're very cheap. You can buy them dried, so it's easier to store and quick to cook. And they have a long shelf life because they are dried. They're not fresh, so they're not going to go off. Fruit and vegetables are very useful in cookery. You know yourself, they add lots of colour, they add flavour, they add texture, they have a high nutritional content, so they include lots of vitamins and minerals that you need. You should know that fruits contain the stone or the pips or the seeds for the new plant. So if you've got something with a seed in it, that's actually a fruit. And then vegetables can come from any part of the plant, so you won't see the stone or the pips in the vegetables. There are some fruits that we class as vegetables simply because we use them in savoury dishes, when in actual fact they are fruits, things like tomatoes and cucumbers and courgettes. You must also know the different types of vegetable cuts. Now you'll remember doing this in class, we cut all those carrots up. You've got 5 different types of vegetable cuts. Julienne are the thin matchsticks. Brunoise are your tiny dice. Jardiniere are your thicker sticks like your batons. Batons is a more common name for them. Macédoine are your medium-sized dice, so a larger dice that you use in foods. And then you have paysan, which are your shapes, so you cut them into shapes for garnishes, etc. So you need to know what they all are and give examples of what they're used in. Moving on to eggs, we've done a lot of work on eggs. You know about all the different uses, or you need to know about all the different uses. Emulsifiers, glaze, whisking, binding, all the different uses for them you need to know about, and you need to give examples of where they're used. You need to know the quality checks, so how do you know that you've got a good egg? it needs to be a good shape, it needs to be clean. You need to have thick egg white. You know a sure sign that it's an old egg when it's runny egg white. And the yolks need to be firm and round and even in colour. Storage, you need to store them in a cool place. Point downwards. Some of you get that wrong in the mock exams. The point needs to go down. Don't store them near smelly foods. The shells are porous and they absorb all that flavour from smelly foods such as onions, so keep them away from smelly foods. The most common eggs we eat come from hens. You can also get them from turkey, geese, guinea fowl, quail, ducks and gulls. And they come in 4 standard sizes: small, medium, large or very large. Dairy product. Milk is classed as a complete food, which, as you know, means that it contains nearly all of the nutrients that we need in a balanced diet. There are milk products, so they're products that derive from milk, such as butter, yogurt, cream. Also dairy ice cream, so ice cream that's made from dairy, not your cheaper alternatives in the supermarket that have been mass produced. Cheese is also a dairy product. This comes from mainly cows and goats in this country. You know how to make that, we've made it before. Cheeses are high in protein, but they are also high in fats. So when you're talking about a balanced diet, you still need to eat it in moderation because they are very high in fat, even though they contain lots of protein. There are different classifications of cheese: soft cheese, hard cheese, and blue vein cheese. Now your blue vein cheese are things like your Stiltons. The blue cheeses, smelly ones that you don't like. To store cheese, you need to wrap it and you need to store it in a cool place. You need to pop it in your fridge. There is very little waste from cheese. You can eat it raw. If you buy it in small amounts, you're not going to have a lot of waste. Vegetable proteins. We did a bit of work on this. We had a taste session, if you remember, on the different alternatives to meat when we did our vegetarian lesson. So you need to know that there are 3 main types of vegetable proteins. You've got textured soya, which is made up from wheat and soya beans. You have corn, which comes from a plant derived from the mushroom family. And then you have tofu, which is processed from soybeans. These are all high in protein and all very good alternatives to animal products. So you know that vegetarians can eat these, and in fact vegans can eat these as well. Sauces. You need to know the definition of a sauce. It's basically a liquid which has been thickened in some way. Things that we use to thicken sauces are a roux, which is equal part fat and flour. We've made lots of roux sauce in our time over the last 2 years. There is also corn flour or arrowroot, which is blended to form a paste and then added to a liquid. Then we have your egg yolks, which also thicken sauces in things such as custards, which we've also made. Sauces should be smooth, they should be shiny, and they should be well seasoned. They add colour, they add flavour, they add texture to your food, they can add nutritional value, and they can also be used to bind food as well. Be aware that a reduction sauce is a sauce that hasn't used a thickening agent, but in fact it's been cooked over a long period of time on a slow heat to thicken it. So the water in the liquid evaporates and you get a thicker sauce. There are 3 sauce consistencies you need to know. The first one is a pouring consistency. They are your runnier sauces, things like your custard for your apple pie. You've got the coating consistency, so something that coats something like on a macaroni cheese. It's a bit thicker, it'll stick, it'll coat the pasta. And then you have your panada, which is a very thick sauce, which actually you use for binding things like fish cakes. So it's very, very thick, and it's used as a binder. Know about all your methods of making. I feel like I've repeated myself for the last few weeks on this, so you should be well aware of methods of making. The 4 methods are rubbing in, which you use for scones, creaming, which you use for cakes, whisking, which you'd use for a light sponge like a Swiss roll, where you whisk up your egg and your sugar, and then melting, which you use in gingerbread or flapjack, and you melt down your fats and your syrups before you add it to other ingredients. So please make sure you know about your 4 methods of making. On the same note, understand bread making, so your basic dough. You've all done it many times. Be aware that the yeast is activated to produce oxygen, which makes it rise, and you have to knead the bread to stretch the gluten and make it elastic for a better texture in your bread. The last thing I'm going to talk about on this topic is convenience products. We did quite a lot of work on convenience products. You need to know the different types of convenience foods. We've got fresh, canned, dried, chilled, frozen, vacuum packed, portion controlled and dried. You need to know what the benefits are to the caterer. So they're going to save time, they're going to save money, they're easy to make, they're quick to cook, you don't need highly skilled staff